Like I said, maybe it's COVID that's kept him out. Who knows?
No, you're right. Michelle Gardner, Arizona State beat writer for the Arizona Republic, joins us now on Sikkim 365 Radio. Arizona State, Brigham Young and Herm Edwards and company off to a 2-0 start. Michelle, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. And obviously, this is a barometer game. Brigham Young with the win against Utah, Arizona State, and Brigham Young this week. Your thoughts about how the Sun Devils enter this game?
Well, they need to play better than they've played in the last two games, that's for sure. Their performance really has been underwhelming, and I hate to be so critical this early in the season, but you're talking two teams that they did win convincingly, but they didn't look good doing it, so no style points in that regard. So they just need to clean a lot of things up. Penalties were an issue in the first game. And they've got to find a go-to wide receiver. Jaden Daniels hasn't had a lot of luck throwing downfield. It's been more underneath stuff, and he's kind of working with some new wide receivers, and we really haven't seen a deep threat emerge from that group.
Where do you think they are in Herm Edwards' overall plan to get? Are they ahead of schedule? Are they behind schedule, on schedule?
Well, it's hard to say. This year they had 20 returning starters. So, and it's a veteran team. We're not just talking players that are in their first year as a starter. They've got players that are third, fourth-year starters. So I think they're on schedule, but they haven't played up to potential, if that makes sense.
How has Jaden Daniels looked through the first couple games?
Well, Herm. Well, yeah, it's a kind of a mixed bag, and Herm talked about this yesterday, and he said, he's only played 6 games with this set of wide receivers. And I think last year, Jaden, I don't want to say he took a step back, but he didn't develop because they only played 4 games. So he comes in as a true freshman, did a pretty admirable job as a freshman, and then last year they had the COVID year. And their first and second games were separated by a month. So he really didn't have that developmental window that was so important for his sophomore year. So I kind of think we're still seeing it now, if that makes sense.
Sure.
How much have they been able to push whatever those dark clouds were from the offseason, the news about whatever happened, the NCAA, maybe the possible violations? Is that even a part of the radar right now?
Well, it's not if you talk to the players. They just say it's business as usual. I don't think they think that's not kind of in their mind when they go out there. I do think that as far as the mentality around the program is, they're all in this year because you don't know what's going to happen next year. Herm and the staff may not be here next year, depending on what is, unraveled. So, and they've got 20 guys that are returning starters, and most of them are seniors. So I think they're all in for this year because when you've got an investigation looming, who knows how many, new players you can bring into the program and what quality of players you can bring into the program next year. So I think they're all in. Like, this has got to be the year the school gets over the hump and gets into the Rose Bowl. Now, when it comes to media, we've kind of seen ASU has always had a very open access. I've had my job's been better than most because they've been very accessible. Anything the media wants. And I don't want to say it's not that way this year, but instead of watching 40 minutes of practice, we're watching 20. They're not as upfront maybe about injury details. We've asked about a couple players that we haven't seen, and they're very cryptic in how they describe. We asked about one player, Elijah Badger, and they just said, well, he's working some things out. Not he's hurt. He's academically ineligible. He's not. That's all we get. So they just seem to be more guarded and holding things closer to the vest. And I don't know if that's because they're trying to guard all the secrets from the enemy, or maybe with the administration has told them don't say anything about anything because of the investigation. But it's just a weird dynamic. And Herm has always been accessible, and he is the guy that you're used to seeing on TV. He's charismatic. He actually does enjoy the media. So it's a little bit of a different dynamic right now.
Obviously, the NCAA doesn't give timetables on investigations. I mean, we just found about Baylor's, and that was a 5-year-long process that they went through here. This one seems to be a little bit more cut and dry. Do they expect to hear something next year so that the administration, if they had to move on from Herm Edwards, would be able to react to that, or was this something they're just going to have to assume that he did or didn't do?
Yeah, I don't know. They're pretty closely guarded when it comes to that kind of stuff, but I don't think the NCAA moves fast on anything. So I would have a hard time thinking anything gets determined or fully investigated until after the season is over. And the one question that we've kind of all wondered is they did pull the plug on the three young assistant coaches, or I hate to say pull the plug, they put them on administrative leave. And Antonio Pierce is still here, and he's the recruiting coordinator, and these were allegedly recruiting violations. And these were three guys that reported to him. So, maybe they wanted to wait for the investigation to play out before making such a major change, if they were going to do something with Pierce. And it's really too bad because I think Pierce was the coach in waiting once Herm retired. And now, obviously, who knows what's going to happen.
Michelle, these teams saw each other a lot in the 70s, but it's been a long time since they've actually played each other. The last game was in 1998.
They were independent, I think, for a long, long time.
Yeah, going up to Provo for the first time in a long time. Is there a little bit of excitement for that? And what challenge, other than just obviously being on the road against a good team, does that present going up to Provo?
I think the players are excited. I mean, in last year, nobody played in front of the crowd and they only played 4 games. So I think these guys are kind of excited. And one of the players, Trevez Moore, who's a grad transfer from LSU, said he was just excited about seeing mountains. He said he's a South guy. He can't wait to see a different environment. Mm-hmm. And Chase Lucas today said, hey, I can't wait to play in 68, 69, 70 degrees and get out of this heat. So, I think they're excited. And, we were standing outside in the parking lot waiting for practice to start, finish, or end, however you want to look at it. And they were practicing in the bubble, and we could hear the piped-in crowd noise. So they were kind of doing that mantra, getting used to the, a noise factor. So I think they're excited about it. I think that they want to prove people wrong. I think they see themselves as the underdog in this game, and a lot of people, maybe don't think that they've got it to go on the road and knock off BYU. So I think they kind of take it as us against the world mentality. On the field and with this investigation, they're like, hey, let's just rally our wagons and worry about ourselves.
I want to bring this up because it's a pinned tweet on your timeline about something that you have been doing when you've done stories about, I guess, mental health, suicides in sports. Is that a book you wrote or coverage of what you did? And congratulations on that. I think you put this up back in May.
Yeah, I did 2 mental health stories. The first was around COVID. And if anybody wants to look for them, you can go to AZ Central and put some of the keywords in. But I did one about the challenges of COVID and how coaches were trying to keep their players in the loop and how they were dealing with the mental stresses of COVID. So I did that one first. And the second one that I did surrounded mental health and suicide prevention. And it was a subject that was near and dear to my heart because I was very good friends with Tyler Holinsky from Washington State. Mm-hmm. I had covered him at Upland High School. And and in fact, before I left Southern California, one of the last stories I did was Tyler's obituary. Wow. And I know him and I know his family very well. And then through working on this mental health story, I stumbled across the Damn Worth It campaign that the Oregon State students, there was a gymnast and a soccer player who both lost teammates to suicide. And they have spearheaded this Damn Worth It campaign to help, create awareness of mental health and what athletes are dealing with. And they've actually teamed up with the family of Holinsky and Holinsky's Hope, and they've put on some mental health awareness things together. So it was and I also knew when I was in Florida, I knew a young wrestler that committed suicide after he had graduated. So it was kind of a subject that was near and dear to my heart and that I was really, really passionate about. And, you know, in the summer when we're not covering college basketball and college football is when we have the time to really work on projects like that. So, yeah, if you want to go to AZ Central and look up the stories and just keyword Tyler Helinski or Damworth, that the stories should come up. But
I just put the link. I just put the link of the story up on our chat room, so that's good.
Oh, good, great. But it was just a really, really compelling, complex issue, and I think we're seeing athletes now, whether it's Naomi Osaka or whoever, talking about mental health issues, and I think it's good that it's something people are talking about now.
I agree with you, Michelle. I remember in a other show I used to do talking about it, years ago, and it was not, a popular thing to bring up or even mention, but now that's definitely changed, and I didn't put two and two together until you mentioned that, but I did read that Tyler Helinski article a long time ago, and it was fantastic. I just wanted to tell you that. It was very good work, and definitely keep it up. You're doing good things for a lot of people out there.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, Michelle, thank you for your time. Hopefully get you on again later in the year. Maybe Arizona State's doing something else. But good luck covering that game with Brigham Young, and thanks for your time.
All right, thank you.
Michelle Gardner, M. Gardner Sports on Twitter, beat writer for the Arizona Republic, covers Arizona State, the Sun Devils, and with us on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Yeah, I remember reading that Helinski article. Now that I went back and looked at her old ones, and I remember clear as day reading that because it was just a fascinating and also just puzzling. It's mental health, right? It's all puzzling. But that Tyler Helinski story, that was a real tragedy, and she did a good job on that. But yeah, Arizona State, it sucks to have that black cloud looming, and they do with Herm Edwards right now in the NCAA investigation. It should be a good game. Arizona State and BYU have some history, although they haven't interacted in quite a while now, but they get to reignite that a little bit, and that should be a beautiful setting out there in Provo, so that'll be a fun game.
Bill Dingspeed on the chat room asked if anyone had been to Sun Devil Stadium. We had the memory of watching Nebraska humiliate
Florida.
Steve Spurrier in Florida for the 95 National Championship, but I've covered many Super Bowls at Sun Devil Stadium. Now, of course, they're inside where the Cardinals play. It is a beautiful setting. I love that. I love that city. If I ever was to move somewhere else, that might be one that I might look at. I'm just saying, I just love, for some reason. Now, you lived there in the late 60s, back before it exploded. But it is a very, very nice setting at Sun Devil Stadium.
Yeah, that was a memorable game. Not so much for Florida fans, although they did have memories. They just weren't good ones after that. Lots of Tommy Frazier flashbacks, and Nebraska for all that game was hyped up. I was young, but I still remember how hyped up that game was because that fun and gun was running wild, and Spurrier was on top of the world. Nebraska was just dominating in a totally different fashion, and then they got out there on the field, and it was not close as to who the better team was.
I can't confirm this for sure, but my best friend who is a Gator fan, Billy, I remember watching that game where I was at his house, was spending the night. We were 15 years old, and I remember him walking outside after it got really bad. Maybe that Tommy Frazier run that was this is not going to get any better anytime soon moment of that game. He walked outside, and I do think it brought out all of his emotions because I was like, oh, you want to go outside? He's like, no, you just give me a minute. And
it's one thing to play for a title and get beat. It's another thing entirely to go and get beat down. You know what I mean? When you get your hopes up like that, and that game was not close. I still remember the final score, as a matter of fact. But yeah, I'm sure your buddy, did he get over it pretty quickly? They got some titles soon after, so he did get that.
Considering that they won the title next year. He got over it.
So he left. You're saying he left after Frazier's long run?
I think so.
That was later in the game.
Yeah, that was just kind of the cream.
Yeah, I think that was the one that maybe just because there was a point where you thought that because that Florida offense could score so fast, like maybe if one thing went their way, but the Nebraska defense was wearing them out.
Yeah, Werfel had no chance, and that was a destruction across the board. Thanks for the time, Michelle Gardner. We're going to hear from Nick De La Torre, covers the University of Florida. The Gators play Alabama this week.
Speaking of the Gators.
Yeah, for Gary Lewis on the chat room, 21 Arizona State offensive linemen. The 2021 Arizona State offensive lineman class is decent, not excellent. A&M transfer's fantastic. He's talking about the Sun Devils. Young dude from California now at center, the best NFL prospect. If he stays next ASU center is from DFW, a great student, person, and player. Gary Lewis was stationed at Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix. Back in the day, my dad was, and he got his master's degree from Arizona State University. I love that city, that area in Phoenix. This is Sikkim 365 Radio, and coming up next, Nick De La Torre on Florida and Bama on Sikkim 365.